My grandmother never wrote anything down. No journals. No seed packets tucked into kitchen drawers. No instructions left on the barn wall. She simply walked outside every spring and planted things, quietly, without ceremony, and by August, the backyard became something that felt impossible. Food appeared. Not once. Every year. I didn't understand it as a child. I assumed gardens worked the way grocery stores did. You start over. Every season. But our garden didn't. Plants returned to the same spots without anyone touching them. Patches grew wider. Roots thickened. By July, food arrived in places nobody had knelt to plant. I watched her walk past those same rows every morning without stopping to tend them, no hoe in hand, no watering can, no concern. I decided she must be replanting quietly. While I slept. She wasn't. Welcome back to Earth Lost Vault and Secret. Hope you are ready with your writing materials to explore these 6 perennial crops. Crops that you plant once, you go back to sleep, and they feed your generation forever. Hit that subscription button, and make sure to share this lesson with your family and friends. We drop this type of content every week. The morning I understood that, I was 12. She pressed a rough, knotted root into my hands, wrapped in damp cloth. It smelled like soil and something older than soil. Put it in the ground, she said. That's it. I waited for the rest of the instructions. There weren't any. Some plants don't belong to one season, she said. They belong to the soil. I dug a hole behind the back fence. Dropped it in. Covered it. Nothing dramatic happened. The first year came and went, and the plant barely showed itself, one shy stem, a few cautious leaves. But the second spring, it returned stronger. The third spring, stronger still. Then the fourth, fifth, 10th. It never asked permission. It never needed replanting. It simply kept returning, as if time itself had agreed to tend it. She passed away on a Tuesday in November. I drove back for the funeral and didn't look at the garden. Too hard. The following spring, I didn't visit at all. Neither did anyone else. By the second year, the new owners had mowed everything flat. The raised beds collapsed under the weight of neglect. Grass crept in from every direction, slow and indifferent, until nothing was left to suggest that anything had ever grown there. I grieved the garden quietly. Alongside everything else. Years passed. Decades. I built my own house, my own plot of land. I planted annuals because that was what people planted. I bought seeds every spring like everyone I knew. But I thought about those rows. Often. Last autumn, I drove to that old property. The couple who lived there now were kind. They let me walk in the backyard. I went to the fence line. And there, in the corner everyone had ignored for 20 years, something was pushing through the soil. 3 leaves. Dark green. Stubborn. My hands were in the earth before I'd consciously decided to dig. The root I pulled up was enormous. Dense. Alive in a way that made my throat tighten. She had put it there. And it had simply kept going. Through neglect, drought, 2 owners, and 2 decades of forgetting. I held it and understood something she had tried to tell me when I was 12. Some crops don't belong to farmers. They belong to time. She had 6 of them in that garden. I know that now. I've spent years learning their names, their habits, their stubborn refusal to disappear. Asparagus was what she called the patient plant. Once the crown is established, it produces spears every spring for 20, sometimes 30 years. You don't rush it. The first year, you don't harvest at all, you let it root deeply. She understood that. She never took more than it offered. Some food rewards patience instead of speed. Rhubarb, she called spring's first promise. It pushes through frozen ground before almost anything else dares. The crown spreads each year, growing bolder. A family that plants rhubarb once will eat from it for generations. It feeds you at the moment you need it most, when winter has just finished and nothing else has arrived yet. Resilient plants feed families before anything else grows. Egyptian walking onions, she never named at all. She just laughed when I asked about them. The bulb tops fall over by late summer and replant themselves. They walk slowly, strangely, across the bed year after year. No human intervention. No replanting schedule. They simply expand on their own terms, colonizing new ground quietly. Nature expands when you stop controlling it. Berry bushes, raspberries and blackberries mostly, sent canes through the back fence and down the slope toward the creek. I remember my fingers stained purple-red through entire July afternoons. She planted 3 canes once. By the time I was a teenager, they had become an impenetrable wall that fed every child in the neighborhood. Food systems once relied on abundance, not scarcity. Artichokes returned each winter, cut back by frost, and emerged the following spring thicker than before. The cold didn't end them. It strengthened them. She knew that. She never covered them or worried over them. Deep roots create resilience. And then there was the plant she gave me at the fence line. Jerusalem artichokes, sunchokes. They multiply underground for decades, producing dense, nutty tubers year after year. One plant becomes dozens. Dozens become a colony. They outlive the person who planted them without even trying. That is what I held in my hands behind that old fence. Still alive. Still multiplying. Still keeping her promise. I didn't take the whole root. I broke off one piece, wrapped it in a cloth from my jacket pocket, and I reburied the rest. Not for myself. For whoever finds it next. Modern gardening teaches us to think in seasons. But she thought in decades. In generations. In the quiet understanding that the most meaningful thing you plant is something you may never fully harvest. She never wrote anything down. But every spring, the soil still remembers her.